This is That Exciting Dude, and you are listening to Stories, Lies, and Shenanigans. That's right. This is That Exciting Dude, and you're listening to Stories, Lies, and Shenanigans. All right. Before we get started, we got to go through the intro. Anyone that's been here knows how this goes. We always do the intro right after the intro music. So, once again, for the third time, welcome to Stories, Lies, and Shenanigans. So this is going to be a test at the end. I'm your captain speaking, the exciting dude, or some people say Ted. You know the drill. Hit the follow button, hit the bell, whatever it is on whatever platform you're listening to, so you can listen to more podcasts as they come out. Right now I'm in this every other week mode, and because I'm really supposed to be doing on the off weeks a little drone training to get my 107 license, which hasn't been going the greatest, but nonetheless, that's why it's every other week. Normally it is weekly, but anyhow, that's to hear more of this sexy voice. But to hear more of it, I am on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Deezer, Castbox, Apple, Podchaser, and YouTube. And the reason why I always name all the platforms, because maybe you're listening on a platform that you don't typically use and you found me, and you could switch me over to your regular platform that you like using. Lastly, I need to give thanks to some some background music, because they are free, but in order for them to really be free and don't get tagged copyright, I need to give them credit where it's due. So the first one is going to be by a person called Brock Hewitt, Stories and Sound, and it's called Ages Ago. The next one is by a person called Hertzman, and his sound bite is called Paradise Island. And then lastly, or not lastly, but the next is the sound is called, or it's by Tropicana, but it's called Sound Roll for the sound bit. And then lastly, the song is called Airplane Mode, and it's by Yoko Nepp. And you can get all of these from upbeat.com, UPPBEAT.com. You can sign up, and I am not endorsed by them, but like I said, I just need to say, hey, I got these. So to show you, we're going to start out with the we're going to do Airplane Mode to begin. Alright. Here's Airplane Mode. I'll let you listen for just a little bit, because I'm going to teach you another thing that I'm going to do during this. If I just say drink, that means take a drink. So drink. Alright, before I get going to the sports, I do want to fill you in on today's stories. I started taking notes, and then I found myself just almost taking the whole story word for word, and finally at the end of it I just said, you know what, I'm just going to take it all. We're just going to read straight from the stories that I found. They're interesting, and we're going to go from there. But we're going to interrupt Airplane Mode, and it's time for sports. Alright, let's go ahead and it's time to enjoy this intro. Sports. Sports is the next topic. What's next? It's time for sports. Guess what? It's time for sports. Oh yeah. Time for sports. All right, it is time for sports. If you don't like sports, you can just skip ahead. This is a very, very brief sports. This is probably the quickest sports that I've ever come across. You want to know why? It's because I didn't do any sports notes. So I'm going by the seat of my pants. First up, before we get going in sports, we do need to take a moment of silence. Because yesterday, Valentine's Day was the winners of the Super Bowl, which was the Kansas City Chiefs. And anyone that knows the sports traditions in the U.S., and I'm sure it's maybe around the world they do the same thing, the parade's always hosted. And they quickly put it on, get it done with. So, Sunday night was Super Bowl. Yesterday was the parade in Kansas City for the Chiefs. But during the parade, there was a shooting. And the media, just like always, likes to skew shit. So there's one deceased, and I'm getting between 20 and 25 wounded. Again, the media just can't get shit right. Everyone's got to be the first to get something out there rather than being correct and precise. And yeah. So, like I said, we're just going to take the next 15 seconds for the silence of the victims. All right. So, as I said, Super Bowl was this past Sunday. The Chiefs defeated the 49ers by a score of 25-22. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of a boring game. I mean, it's a game that everyone liked. Being close. I mean, it was definitely the last quarter was the good, when all the good stuff happened. Chiefs had to come back, tied, went into overtime. Basically the Chiefs won. So that's it. Football is done. Next up is the draft. Right now we have about a month before we go to the college basketball. I am not a basketball person, but I will try to do a coverage of I don't know how I'm going to do it because it's so fast paced, and because I'm doing it every 2 weeks, it might not be the greatest. I'll see what I can do as far as covering basketball when it comes down to March Madness. All right, moving on to my NHL, my beloved Red Wings. They've been getting a lot of W's, but they've been in overtime. But I guess, you know what? You got to take the W where you get the W. And, yeah, they're getting W's, which is good. Still have a few months before playoffs start for the NHL. But, they're getting the W's. I know NASCAR started, but I'm not a NASCAR fan. Baseball, I'm sure training camp is probably a month away or so. As you know, I am not a baseball person as well. Basketball, nope. So it does kind of suck when I get away from my sports that I like to follow. So I am going to, I think, cover local sports, or maybe just the professional within my state that I live in, even though they're not doing good at all. I think the Detroit Pistons are like 6 wins for like 40 losses, which is horrible. I think they're dead last by like a long shot in the NBA. But yeah, I'm not going to blabber on about sports that I'm not covering anymore. So let's go ahead and get to the stories. All right. Let's see, where did we leave off? We'll go to the Benjamin sound here. Ben sounds. So, first to give you a little insight, we're going to talk about the things going on in the Middle East, in Israel. This is like the greater surrounding areas. Because I'm basically going to be taking it all from the article, I'm going to give credit to where, again, it is due. This is from the Navy Times, www.navytimes.com. And this is a main article up there. And the article says, all of the Houthi/U.S. Navy incidents in the Middle East. Then parentheses, that we know of. And I kind of was like, interesting article. This has nothing to do with the bearing of what side you're on, if you're for, against, and all that with Israel and all of that. It's just, focused on the article. I was in the Navy. Just all these encounters that the military has had with the Houthi militants. So this is the latest. I just went to the website and I got the latest link, which it was updated as of this morning at 10 a.m. Basically 12 hours ago, give or take a little. So basically it starts out, it's talking about, since the start of the Israel and Hamas war in October, Iran-backed Houthi militants have sent in relentless barrage of missiles and attacks drones at commercial vessels and Navy ships in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. So let's quickly get the maps up here. If you're not familiar with where exactly the Red Sea is, I mean, most everyone's good at geography, but let's, first we need to get everyone honed in. So basically, the Red Sea is the body of water that's in between Egypt, Sudan, and Eritrea, and Saudi Arabia, and a little bit of Yemen. And then it kind of goes to a funnel, and then you have the Gulf of Aden before you get to Arabian Sea, which is basically Yemen and Somalia, which this has always been known as a hot area for pirates or Houthis. Even when I was in the military, we didn't get over this far because we were in the Arabian Sea, and then to the Gulf of Oman, and in through the Straits of Hormuz, and then into the Persian Gulf. So we never made it over here this far. And so that's where we are. Again, Middle East. It's a debate of what's the Middle East. Everyone, you could look up so many different versions. And so basically the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. So the Navy now arguably finds itself in a proxy war with the Yemen-based Houthis, and the men and the women aboard American destroyers in the region are facing a level of maritime hostility that the sea service hasn't encountered since World War II. Interesting. Okay, below is a running list of every instance where the U.S. Navy ships and or a jet has shot down a Houthi attack, and every instance where the United States and its allies have hit back at Houthi sites in Yemen since October. The list is based on incidents publicly confirmed and announced by U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM, as well as reported by Military Times and the Associated Press. If I'm correctly, I think CENTCOM... Oh man, you're really going to test my knowledge here. No, I did it to myself. I think CENTCOM is in the United Arab Emirates. I forget exactly where it is. It doesn't matter. But basically, it's, the Central Command for Middle East. Alright, so U.S. destroyers are confirmed to participate in at least the following number of incidents according to CENTCOM. The USS Thomas Hudner 2, the USS Gravely 4, the USS Mason 7, the USS Laboon 8, hopefully I'm saying that right, and the USS Carney 10. Alright, and these are as late as yesterday's attacks. So on February 14th, 2014, U.S. forces struck 7 mobile anti-ship cruise missiles, 3 mobile unmanned aerial vehicles, and 1 explosive unmanned surface vessel in Yemen that were prepared to launch against ships in the Red Sea. Yeah, that's definitely, these are all major, don't get me wrong. Definitely up there. February 13th, 2014, U.S. forces struck, it doesn't tell you which one, what ship did what, probably for certain reasons. It didn't want to really get into details as far as which ships did which. Interesting. Okay. Where was I? I'm not going to go through all of these. There's actually a couple of these that are just, it's your basics. Boat shows up. They're not stopping. So you start firing at them because they're getting within the bubble of what we call, you get in between, and U.S. territory. There's a little bubble around all the ships that the Navy has. And every country kind of uses, I think, the same format. It's like 500 feet. Maybe it's a half a mile. Maybe it's a mile. It's the bubble. And, you get inside that bubble, you become a threat. Especially if you have guns pointed at the ship. Drink. So before we go any further in this story about the Houthi attacks in the U.S. Navy, my choice of drink is water, Heineken, and cold coffee, which I probably won't get to the cold coffee. Alright, so let's move forward a little bit here. Okay, so this one says, alright, so I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. So February 4th, 2024, CENTCOM conducted a strike against Houthi anti-ship cruise missile in Yemen, as well as a strike against the Houthi land attack cruise missile. Later, U.S. forces struck 4 anti-ship cruise missiles, all of which were prepared to launch. So they must have been like on the beach. That's what I'm gathering from that, because it says they were prepared. Interesting. Here we go. Let's see, February 3rd. CENTCOM conducted strikes against 6 Houthi anti-ship cruise missiles prepared to launch against ships in the Red Sea. Later, U.S. and Allied forces conducted strikes against 36 Houthi targets at 13 locations in Iranian-backed Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. Iranian? Huh. So we got the Iranians all the way down in Yemen helping out the Houthi. Let's see. Here we go. This one's right up my alley because I see in there it's talking about the airplane that I worked on. I say airplane, but the jet. The Navy destroyer Carney engaged and shot down an aerial drone over the Gulf of Aden. Later, CENTCOM conducted strikes against 4 Houthi attack drones in Yemen that were prepared to launch. That same day, the Navy destroyer Laboon and FAA-18 Super Hornets from the Dwight D. Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group engaged and shot down 7 drones over the Red Sea. Confirmed U.S. assets involved: the USS Carney, the USS Laboon, and F-18s from the Dwight D. Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group. I worked on the F-18 Super Hornet, so that's why that one definitely struck out for me. Then it's showing a picture of the flight deck. It doesn't say, it just says U.S. Central Command. So, it's talking about one of them. Here we go. January 30th, 2024. The Navy destroyer Gravely shot down an anti-ship cruise missile fired over the Red Sea. It got within a nautical mile of the Navy destroyer Gravely, and the warship used its Phalanx close-in weapon system to take the missile out. A defense official later confirmed USS assets involved, the USS Gravely. So, it used its Phalanx closed-in system. Again, using my knowledge, I just want to Google this just to make sure that I am correct and not giving the wrong information. Okay, so if you've ever seen a U.S. warp ship, and particularly, and you see a little looks like R2-D2, but with a Gatling gun coming out of it, that is what they call the Phalanx closed-in weapon system, or the Phalanx C-Wiz. C closed. Then the Wiz part for the in weapon system. And basically, what this Gatling gun does is it uses already, spent plutonium. Shit, hopefully I'm getting this right. And basically what it does is it shoots at a very high rate at missiles. And it's uranium, not plutonium. Whatever the heck I said. It's uranium, but it's already spent uranium. And what it does is it creates this wall because it expands as they're shooting it. And it creates almost a physical wall. It's still invisible. You can't see it. And then the missile hits this mass in the air because it's kind of like a solid. And then it, destroys the missile. I'm actually amazed that how many did they let's see. It was just one. Okay. Just a single missile. I'll just let you in on a little secret. The Phalanx sucks. It jams up really easy. At least that's what we were always told when I was on the ship. Alright, January 28th, 2024, the U.S. Coast Guard Sentinel-class fast response cutter Clarence seized advanced conventional weapons and other lethal aid originating in Iran and bound to Houthi controlled areas of Yemen from a vessel in the Arabian Sea. As I'm starting to burp. So basically, a ship that was getting ready to give Houthis more weapons to try to destroy Americans or other just ships in general was seized. Alright, let's see if anything else really stands out here. Let's see here. Here we go, January 24th. And we're still at January 24th, and I'm like skipping ahead. 2 American flagships carrying cargo for the U.S. Defense and State Departments came under attack by the Houthis. 1 missile landed in the Gulf of Aden, while 2 others were successfully engaged and shot down by the Navy destroyer Gravely. Earlier that day, U.S. forces struck two... Oh, why is it repeating the same thing? More missiles. A lot of this is like missiles being shot down. Missiles being shot down. Here we go. Here comes my Super Hornets here. Alright, January 19th, U.S. forces conducted strikes against the 3 healthy anti-ship missiles that were aimed into the southern Red Sea and were prepared to launch. The strikes were carried out by F-18 Super Hornets off the aircraft carrier of the Dwight D. Eisenhower. And it has a nice, glorious picture of the flight deck and the, let's see, looks like 2 shooters. They're just mirroring each other. The one must be training because with how close they are. But you know, basically, you can see the afterburner of a plane behind them, and they're doing their little shoot thing that they do right before the launch of the aircraft off the bow. Actually, let's see if I can figure out where they are. And the picture is so close zoomed in, I can't tell exactly what catapult they're using on the aircraft carrier. Alright, let's see if there's anything else that anything else that stands out as we keep moving with all these healthy attacks. Alright, January 15th, 14th, January. Here we go. The Navy destroyer Carney struck a healthy radar site in Yemen using the Tomahawk land attack missile. Let me tell you, I have seen the Tomahawks fly in action. When I was in the Navy, I saw a lot of Tomahawk missiles take off from ships when the whole Iraq War started on March 19th, 2003. Let's see here. Here we go. Healthy rebels launch a complex attack of drones and missiles. This is January 9th, 2024. Again, I skipped ahead, but we're... all these healthy attacks. What can we say? So healthy rebels launch a complex attack of drones and missiles targeting ships in the Red Sea. FA-18 Super Hornets from the aircraft carrier Dwight D. Eisenhower and destroyers USS Gravely, USS Mason, and the Laboon, and a British warship, HMS Diamond, downed all 18 drones, 2 cruise missiles, and the anti-ship missile. Wow, a lot of action on January 9th. It's a good thing everything is working in order. I mean, let's see. Let's see if anything, let's see. Nope, nothing happened on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. Let's see. I'm trying to find the ones that deal with the F-18 Hornet, since there seems to be a few of those. Of course, now I'm like eating my own words and I'm like not finding any. Because, like, again, you know, I worked on that aircraft, did a lot with it, and of course now I'm not finding any. Alright, so we're going to pick a couple here before we move on to the next plan of action. Go ahead and drink. All right. December 16th, the Navy destroyer Carney, operating in the Red Sea, took out a swarm of 14 air attack drones launched from Yemen. USS ships and assets involved, the USS Carney. And earlier, let's see, then there's a tweet that's from the U.S. Central Command, aka CENTCOM, in the Middle East. In the early morning hours of December 16th, Sani time, The USS Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer USS Carney DDG-64, operating in the Red Sea, successfully engaged 14 unmanned aerial systems launched as a drone wave from healthy controlled areas of Yemen. The UAS, or the aerial, and then you had to click on it to do more. Alright, here we go. Let's see here. There's one down here that I went past. A lot of these are just like drones shot down, drone shot down, drone shot down, drone shot down. Here we go, November 26th to the 27th of Thanksgiving in the U.S. Let's see, the Navy destroyer Mason with allied ships and associated aircraft from the Coalition Counter-Piracy Task Force responded to a distress call from a commercial vessel, MV Central Park, that it was under attack by an unknown entity. Later, 2 ballistic missiles fired from Yemen were launched in the direction of the Mason and the Central Park, but the missiles landed in the Gulf of Aden, approximately 10 nautical miles from the ship. Confirmed USS assets involved, the USS Mason. I remember reading that one. That was actually in the news. I mean, I think all of these are in the news somewhat. Then we're just gonna. Then the very first one, which was October 19th, 2023. Again, these are the ones that are logged and the ones that are released to the public from CENTCOM. So the last one that we're going to go to is October 19th, 2023. The Navy destroyer USS Carney in the northern Red Sea intercepted 3 land attack cruise missiles and several drones that were launched by Houthi forces in Yemen. The action by the Carney is believed to signal the first shots fired by the U.S. military in the wake of the Palestinian militant group Hamas' October 7th attack on Israel. Again, I worked backwards. I was going to start going through all of them, but then I started realizing like a lot of it was just the same stuff. It's just drones or all these missiles getting set up, and then, through intelligence, we're just, destroying all of the militants' weapon batteries and all that good stuff. It's all part of war. War sucks, but it is what it is. It's the evolution of just how the world is, and yeah, there's that. All right, so we're gonna quickly bring this down to a silence. Now I know that commercials are automatically played via Spreaker, and I think if you're listening via YouTube, I think YouTube adds in theirs too. I'm not totally positive, but I'm going to read you a little something. So I know ads are auto-created, but let's take a minute to remind you what else is going on. My name is That Exciting Dude, and you can catch me on TikTok at That Exciting Dude, YouTube at That Exciting Dude, and I stream games on Twitch at, you guessed it, That Exciting Dude. Right now, TikTok is at a TikTok. YouTube, again, need to do a little better job. It's there. There's a lot of content that you can catch up on if you haven't ever been to my page. And then Twitch, I'm always streaming. I don't have a really good set schedule. You can go to my profile and you can read the notes of what times I am trying to stream, that I'm pretty good at streaming. Alright, so back to, let's see here. I didn't realize it, but Spreaker updated me from the package that I was paying to. I was only getting 3 hours. Now I get like 5 hours to play with, and it's like 5 hours. I could barely make it the, what are we at right now? 35 minutes. It's like, juice. Alright, so like I said, we were moving on Let's see. All right, we're moving on to the next story. And this has to do with the squadron that I was in when I was in the Navy. I'm just going to tell you about the squadron. I'm taking it straight from the webpage. So, again, I need to give credit where it is due. So I'm going to read you the web address and try to follow along with the web address. Alright, it is called www.airpac.navy.slash organization/about-us/strike-fighter-115/history/. Alright. The Strike Fighter Squadron VFA 115, the Eagles. I was part of this from 2000 to 2004, but we are going to read this article until I'm relevant, and we're going to stop at that point. I'm not going to go any further because this does go further all the way up to, let's see, I'm quickly skipped all the way to the end. I'm seeing 2011. So it looks like 2011 affairs of whatever operations that the cruises went on. So the Eagles of the Strike Fighter Squadron 115 continue to a proud legacy that dates to the dark months following the attacks on Pearl Harbor. Originally founded as a Torpedo Squadron 11, or VT-11, on the 10th of October of 1942, the Eagles and their predecessors have been involved in every major American conflict since World War II, having flown a multitude of aircraft from the TBF Avenger in the battlefields of the Pacific to the newest FA-18E over the sands of Iraq and Afghanistan. The tradition of excellence in action and devotion to duty has remained constant. Oh yes. As the nation mobilized for war in the Pacific, Torpedo Squadron 11 launched the first daylight strikes against Bougainville and the Solomon Islands from their base on the Guadalcanal. In October 1944, attached to the USS Hornet, the crews of VT-11 formed the tip of the spear in the first strikes against Okinawa. 2 weeks later, after the failed Japanese attempt to reinforce the Philippines at the Leyte Gulf, VT-11 enhanced its growing legacies by launching on a 340 nautical mile strike to finish off the remnants of the Japanese fleet. For their heroic actions during the war, the crews of VT-11 earned 7 Navy Crosses and established a tradition that would continue long after the closing of World War II. Alright, remember VT-11 is really the VFA 115. It's just what it was called back in the day because of the type of the type of aircraft that they were using and all that good stuff. Following the war, VT-11 returned to Naval Air Station San Diego on the 25th of June 1945, and the squadron received its first official patch drawn by Walt Disney. The squadron was designated Attack Squadron 12 Able, VA-12A, in 1946. 2 years later, VA-12A participated in a worldwide cruise aboard on board the USS Valley Forge, making it part of the first carrier air wing to circumnavigate the globe. Blah. On the 15th of July, 1948, the squadron was redesignated Attack Squadron 115, or VA-115. The transition to the Douglas A-1 Sky Raider, the last propeller-driven fighter bomber. In 1950, as the North Korean Army swept across the 38th parallel, launching the Korean War, VA-115 once again entered the fray. Deployed aboard the USS Philippine Sea for 9 months, the squadron repeatedly distinguished itself. VA-115 launched strikes in support of the amphibious assault on Icheon, resulting in the relief of American troops in the Pusan perimeter. I believe I'm saying that correctly. A second deployment to the Korean theater came in December of 1951. Over the course of the squadron service in Korea, it flew 2,268 combat missions and earned the Presidential Unit Citation and Battle Efficiency Award for its outstanding performance. Interesting. See, I knew a lot of the history, but I never really have sat down when I was in the squadron. There was a lot of history stuff up, and I read a lot of it, but I didn't read all of it. So this is kind of interesting. Some of this I kind of knew a lot of it, but this is kind of oh, okay. Oh, where did I leave off here? On the 17th of September 1956, a new squadron insignia was approved, which replaced Disney's torpedo-slinging cherub and reflected the squadron's legacy and mission. The sun and the stars represented day and night. The horizon with the longitude and the latitude lines represented the Earth, which showed that the squadron had been around the world, and the sundial pointed to the time of 1:15 p.m. Although there has been some minor altercations, this is the same patch worn by the squadron today. A star has been added for each of the squadron's major conflicts: World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Operation Desert Storm, and the global war on terrorism, Operations Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom. So yeah, when I joined my squadron, there was 4 stars on the patch. And then after we got started with the whole Iraq War in 2003, another star was added for the 5th star. Alright. In 1960, VA-115 adopted the nickname Arabs to commemorate passing through the Suez Canal aboard the USS Hancock. In 1965, as the conflict in Vietnam escalated, the Arabs were called upon to take the fight to the enemy. Deploying aboard the USS Kitty Hawk, the Arabs spent 6 months on the line at Yankee Station. During this line, the period, VA-115 flew 2,051 combat sorties, released 7 million pounds of ordnance against enemy targets in Vietnam, and flew combat rescue patrols to protect pilots downed behind enemy lines. In September of 1966, VA-115 joined CVW-5 aboard USS Hancock for another deployment to Vietnam from January to July of 1967. Whoa, a lot of information right there. Hopefully you caught up, and if you didn't, just hit that little rewind button. Alright, in August of 1967, the squadron was placed into an active status. VA-115 returned to an active status in January of 1970 and moved to Naval Air Station Whidbey Island for its transition to its 3rd aircraft, the Grumman A-6A Intruder. In 1972, the Arabs deployed on board the USS Midway and steamed into another line period of Vietnam. Participating in Operation Linebacker 1, the squadron earned another Presidential Unit Citation. Now things are starting to explain why, and I'll explain later. In September 1973, USS Midway changed home ports to Yokosuka, Japan. Permanent forward deployment of a carrier allowed the United States to downsize the carrier fleet after the ceasefire in Vietnam, and it still maintained a presence in the Far East. While USS Midway was in Yokosuka, VA-115 and CVW-5 were based at nearby Naval Air Facility Atsuki. When the ship pulled into Subic Bay, Philippines, the squadron operated out of Naval Air Station Kubi Point closed after the eruption of Mount Pinatubo in 1991. Let's see. In the summer of 1977, VA-115 transitioned to the A6E, and the following year the squadron officially changed its nickname from the Arabs to the Eagles. Just want to let you know there's going to be a test after this, so hopefully you're taking notes. During the 1980s, VA-115 continued its transition of excellence to the CVW-5, was called upon to respond to fighting between North and South Yemen, the fall of Iran's Shah, the Iranian hostage crisis, and the political unrest in South Korea. VA-115 deployed to the Indian Ocean in 1985 and again in 1986, with an underway period of 111 continuous days at sea, and was chosen as the West Coast Intruder Squadron of the Year. Later, while on deployment to the Arabian Sea in 1989, the Eagles temporarily changed their nickname back to Arabs. What, to fit the area? Oh, we're going back to the Middle East. We don't want to be the Eagles. Alright, we need to do another background sound here. I don't know about you, but I'm really getting into this. Alright, on the 2nd of August of 1990, Saddam Hussein launched the invasion of Kuwait, and the VA-115 Eagles were called upon to support Hey, I thought they changed their name to the Arabs. Oh, whatever. They can't make up their mind, apparently. The Eagles were called upon to support coalition forces in the Persian Gulf. Deployed to the North Arabian Gulf, VA-115 protected red flag Kuwaiti shipping and flew missions in support of Operation Desert Shield. As diplomatic efforts failed to force an Iraqi withdrawal, the decision to use force was reached. And then on the 17th of January 1991, VA-115 participated in the opening airstrikes of Operation Desert Storm. The rapid dismantling of the Iraqi military was sped up by the 453 combat sorties and the 724,000 pounds of ordnance expended by the Eagles. Expended, aka dropped. I totally lost my spot here. Where am I? Actually, it's a good time to take a drink. Drink. Alright, following the cessation of the hostilities, and the Eagles continued to support Operation Southern Watch on multiple deployments on board the USS Independence, which relieved the USS Midway as the Navy's forward deployed aircraft carrier. In 1996, VA-115 transitioned from the venerable Intruder to the FA-18C Hornet and moved to Lemoore, California. Lost myself again. I'm like getting into this like a fighter. I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I'm getting into this. Okay, newly redesigned Strike Fighter Squadron 115, or VFA 115. Time with the Hornet was to be short-lived, After only 2 deployments with CVW-14 on board the USS Abraham Lincoln, which I was on, the Eagles were selected to be the first squadron to transition to the FA-18E Super Hornet, which is what I was part of, because when I joined the squadron, we still had their Charlies, which was the FAA-18C, and I was part of the transitioning squadron. Okay, so the Eagles were selected to be the first squadron to transition to the FA-18E Super Hornet in February of 2001. VFA 115 returned from its last Westpac in the Hornet and successfully transitioned to the Super Hornet in less than 100 days. All the good old days of training with VFA 122. It was not long before the new Super Hornets were put to the test in combat. In 2002, VFA 115 dropped 22 JDAMs in support of Operation Southern Watch. All right. It looked like this is going to be the last article. In March of 2003, the Eagles participated in the opening salvos of Operation Iraqi Freedom. By April 9th, VFA 115 have dropped 380,000 pounds of ordnance and provided 3.5 pounds, or we could say 3.5 million pounds of gas and tanking support role. We're going to pause right here. So, part of the reason why we went into the tanking business was because the Air Force kept breaking the probes of the aircrafts. I think there was like 2 or 3 probes that got broke in like a matter of like a week. And finally we're just like, we're going to do our own tanking. So, again, 3.5 million pounds of gas in the tanker support role, which I remember getting the aircraft that was the tanker, and it sucked to be the plane captain for that aircraft. It took about 45 minutes to fuel, and he was only gone for about an hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes, then he was back. And then it would be a hot refuel, which again took 45 minutes, and then he was only gone for like an hour. Maybe an hour and a half. And then he was back. You worked your ass off if you had the tanker bird. But if you had a regular fighter bird, you barely did shit. Because when I finally got a regular fighter bird that had bombs, like, you might see him leave, and he came back at night check because he was gone for like 8 hours up in the air. Alright, got off kilter there. Let's get back to. So let's see. Again, 3.5 million pounds of gas in the tanker support role. The sustained level of outstanding performance earned the Eagles and the USS Abraham Lincoln the Navy Unit Commendation. During extended deployment on board the John C. Stennis, I was still part of the squadron when we switched to the Stennis. The Eagles earned the Battle Efficiency Award yet again, and I'm just finishing up the article. A second deployment in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom followed in 2006 aboard the USS Ronald Reagan. VFA 115 made history by dropping the first live ordnance launched from the deck of the Reagan. Like I said, I got out in 2004. I was on from 2000 to 2004. So I didn't get that last. I didn't go on the Reagan. I know we did a boat debt, we did like a month exercise on the John C. Stennis. And then it's funny, I left the day that they were leaving to go on the cruise. Not on the Reagan, but they were still going on the Stennis in 2004. I want to say it was like middle of May, if I remember correctly. They were going on another cruise, and I was waving to them saying, bye, I'm going home. But yeah, like I said, I'm not going to go any further, even though it is only like 3 more paragraphs, because most of it was the history. And that was the squadron that I was in. Like I said, it was VFA 115 of the Navy, and I've told you every Navy story, so we're just going to keep it at that. Alright, this is That Exciting Dude. Hopefully you definitely enjoyed the topics that I chose today. Maybe the first one wasn't the greatest, but I kind of wanted to fit it in with the second one of the squadron, the history, and just everything that went along with it. And so yeah, hopefully you thoroughly enjoyed it. Why not? One last more time. We're gonna take a sip. We're gonna take a drink. Take a drink. This is That Exciting Dude, and you know the drill. This is That Exciting Dude, and you just got done listening to Stories, Lies, and Shenanigans. Hit the like button, and I'll catch you in 2 weeks. Peace.